Hello, everyone. My name is Zack Varkaris. I'm the Scientific Director of Austin Biotech. And I'm here today to talk about rejuvenating ovaries to enable menopausal women to have children. And our journey started in 2018 when we were working on the clinical trial in 2018 with PRP, which is platelet-rich plasma, which is a form of blood derived that's taken out of the blood, and the red blood cells are taken out. And so the results, whilst they were good, were limited. And we found there was a very limited response for the fertility area. So we had to find something that was a bit more power and punch to it. So we looked for something a bit more powerful. And that was bone marrow-derived stem cells. The question was, do we use allogenic or autologous? So our own stem cells or someone else's stem cells? But because this is an aging issue and not a genetic issue, and we decided to go for autologous, which is easier to do both morally, financially, logistically, every which way possible. And we were working on the work of other people, Dr. Svakianotis and Dr. Konstantinos Pantos in Greece, as well as Dr. Al-Hendi in the University of Chicago, who had worked with a pilot study with 3 women who had premature ovarian failure. So we came up with a new protocol, and we called it exotherapy. So I'm just skimming through. There we go, done. And the exotherapy takes stem cells from the top of your hip bone, we extract it out, we centrifuge it down to 9 mil, and we add exosomes to it. And exosomes are pieces of signaling system that come from cells, and they allow you to attach to the actual cell itself. And so we add the exosomes with the stem cells, and we inject it into the ovaries. And what we did is we baselined the candidates. We did blood work, the standard blood work, and then we also looked at diet and exercise. And we got some basic results, which were pretty good. However, we had a slight problem. As things started to get going, we had the small issue of the pandemic that approached us. And the pandemic meant that we were absolutely lost because we couldn't do anything at all, because we couldn't take anyone to the clinics. So we did 2 things. The first thing we did was we gave our results and our research to 2 other clinics, one in Serbia and the other one in Greece, in the hope that maybe they might be able to do something with it. And the second thing we did was we took the candidates and we basically had to prepare them and keep them on hold and keep them on ice, which provided some amazing results. The first thing that happened was we were getting them physically fit. So looking at their diet very intricately, looking at their exercise routines, looking at their mental state and their mental health, their emotional state. I mean, science is very much masculine driven about how big your muscles are and how many inches things are, as opposed to really the sort of encompassingness of the emotional aspects of some of these things that we do, because we're not machines, we're humans, and we have emotions. And one of the things that came out of this was we had some great results, actually. We had a 61-year-old woman who was 4 years menopausal, who started to menstruate again before she'd even gone through the procedure. And we had another lady who had years of lifelong Lyme's disease that was in remission at 52 years old, plus her ovaries started to increase and her AMH levels were also increasing. But we found that there was an importance of purpose for this, and how you have to really feel that if you don't, why are people having children? They come to us and they say, well, why do you have to have children? What's the point of it? Why are you doing it? Because someone tells you to do it? Because you think it's an important thing to do? It defines you as a woman, defines you as a wife or husband or whatever it is. And those things are very important because we tend to not look at those things when we look at this scientifically. We're very objective, we're numbers, and this is what we do. And that can be very detrimental to the validity of our results. And one of the things that we found for this was the feedback and the improvement of our candidates. And again, it's a very small sample size we used. We don't have more than, it's under 200, so it's a very small number. However, we did find that there were some very significant results, which I'm not going to put up on the screen. If someone wants to speak to me afterwards, I can give you the results on, rather than lots of numbers on the screen. But the big elephant in the room is egg quality. So sure, we can get your menstrual cycle getting up, and the results were pretty good. We had an 85% resumption of menses in the whole sample, average age of 51 years old. We had a 13.6% pregnancy rate. If you split the statistics, you can get up to 19.8, depending on how you massage the numbers, but let's say keep it at 13.6. Nature's about 24%. And this is not using drugs. This is not using drugs for IVF, where you enlarge the ovaries and damage the ovaries. And the effects behind it are very significant because you have a lot of beneficial effects that increase your health. There's very clear studies that show that if you, the later you go through menopause, the longer you live. And one of the areas that we found with our egg quality was the Merino and Cascade of 2019. They used the Wharton-derived stem cells, and they found that if they were attached to an ovary, they will differentiate into an ova. However, the issues with that is that they have to stick onto the ova, and this is where we use the exosomes. The exosomes are like a biological chewing gum that attach onto the egg, allowing the stem cells to actually differentiate, giving them time. But the question is, and this is what the study's about, is how your stem cells, when they differentiate, they age to the cells surrounding your body. So if you're a 51-year-old or a 52-year-old, your stem cells will differentiate to that age. But they don't differentiate to that age instantaneously. There's a small little gap. And it's that gap that we're trying to exploit to maximize the quality of that egg. Because technically your stem cells are immortal, and when they differentiate, they're still as good as they supposedly were from the day you were born, but or maybe a year afterwards. But that's basically what we looked at. And the results, again, as I said, were pretty good, with 85% resumption of menses, 13.6% pregnancy, and an average age of 51. The oldest candidate we had was 61 years old, who had a child. That was, although, using some special effects. But the whole thing about it is, fertility fitness is not just about giving birth to a child. It's also about taking that child to maturity. Because, in the old days, when you were 8 years old, you were sent out into the fields to do some work. But nowadays, those children have to go through college at 21 years old. And that means that you have to be physically fit to be able to take that child up to the maturity. And that requires you being both physically, emotionally, and financially fit. So the next phase of that is afterwards is to look at postpartum of where you are physically. So to improve your skin quality, to improve the aesthetics and how you feel. And something that we look at, which is not just improving your health span or your lifespan, we call it your emotional or your Freudenspanne, your joy span, the emotional aspects, which is measuring the intrinsic parameters that are physical and cognition of emotional measurable parameters for personal fulfillment. And it's something that we're working on, and we've done a couple of little areas for it, and we want to develop it to the next stage. And we believe that it's something that we ignore at our peril, the emotional aspects of that. And, we want to sort of, in the future, look at maximizing that protocol, so making it far more efficient. We want to get it up to 100% improvement of menstrual cycle. We want to improve the pregnancy rate up to the level of nature. And the beauty is that because there is no damage done by this procedure, you have the ability to have this again. So for 2 years, you have the effects of, up to 2 years, you have the effects of the beneficial effects of having menstrual cycles. So thicker hair, more supple skin, denser bones, which affect you sort of post-menopausal time. And obviously we want to look at improving that success rate. So this is still the first phase. Obviously our results are starting to come in now. We have a second phase coming in the next year. And until that point, we are sort of working forward with what we have to do next. And so our success rate, as I said, is quite low, I think. We would like it to be better. I think 13.6% is not good enough for us. We want it to be 24%. But that's pretty much it. I mean, I wanted to have this more of a Q&A rather than put lots of information on the screen. I spoke to some of you last night, I can see in the audience. So again, I'll bring some questions over. Anyone wants to ask questions?